All right. I'm with Teemu, the founder of AI Contenfy. How you doing?
Great. Nice to nice to be here in Acquire podcast.
Yeah, excited to hear your story. For those that may not know you, do you want to just give a brief background on yourself?
Yeah, my own background. I'm both technical and also business. I've studied 2 master's degrees, and this was my second startup that I sold through Acquire. But I've been in the startup field for around 10 years now.
Nice. Yeah, you were telling me before we started recording, this is your second startup that you had acquired on acquire.com. Definitely want to get into that. But before we do you want to just explain what was AI Contentify? What did it do? What problem did it solve? How do you think of the idea? You had a funny story with the name of it too. A sales rep told you. Let's hear all that and go from there.
So AIContentfy was a way to scale blog production for B2B SaaS companies, mainly originally. With AI, obviously, we started creating content. I developed the initial product myself. And at some point, I thought that it might make sense to pivot this towards this sort of a hybrid service model where we actually incorporate typical SEO services on the side of the company. And we were able to grow to $1 million in ARR in about 2 years before exiting. And when I started the company, there was actually 2 salespeople that called me on the first day of incorporating the company. And they said, is this AIContentfy? And I immediately knew that this is the wrong name. I shouldn't pick this one, but turned out it was a lucky venture anyway.
I bet other startups maybe go through that with having AI in their name and people mistaking it for Al. I'm sure that'll change, probably very quickly here. But knowing this,
one of the core tenets I had when I started my company was that I'm not going to spend any time on, designing a logo or picking a name and just going to, build, as fast as I can because the momentum is everything. So, I think I spent maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes on the name and another 5 minutes on the logo eventually.
That's the way it should be, 100%. Especially, someone gave me a good quote. It wasn't really a quote, but it was like a saying. It was like, people don't care if your startup's name is like Toaster Master 5000. Like you can rebrand when, you're winning or something like that. I thought it was clever and funny.
Yeah, definitely.
You were saying before we started recording that since you had gone through an exit before building this company, there was a lot of things that you did at the start with this company to essentially prepare it for an exit really early. What were some of those things?
Some are minor, some are bigger things. So, for example, if you're from a corner market like Finland, you might create stuff in Finnish when you do a website or do internal documentation. So from first day I knew I'm gonna do everything in English. And I'm going to hire a English speaking team that can easily transfer over to the new buyer. All the processes of the company should be well documented. So things like that. We actually followed an EOS framework for building the company. So that was quite easy then to hand over.
Nice. So you had just really clear documentation from the beginning, like outlining processes and just how things operate so you can hand it over to a new buyer.
Exactly. And I didn't want to be personally tied into any of the core processes myself, even though it became a service-based company. Typically, you see marketing agencies, the founder is the heart and soul of the company. But in our company, I want to find people who can really manage the day-to-day, and my own personal time is spent on just growth initiatives, really.
Nice. How much time did it take you to do these extra things? Because a lot of these things that you're outlining, it can be really easy to set up. Most founders just don't put any time into it until, they're looking to sell the business and they're going to be valuable to a buyer. This time around, compared to your first startup, how much extra time was spent here? Was it a huge lift? Was it no problem at all?
I mean, the first company was a very minor exit compared to this one. So what lacked there was essentially a great sales process. So here we systematized the sales, we systematized the delivery process, everything. You set it up once and you're pretty much good to go. Luckily, I had a good operator in the company, so to say, who was able to, document everything and put everything on paper.
Nice. What was like the hardest part about building this company?
I mean, if I think about the history of the company, some of the toughest days were when our best salesperson passed away. So that was about a little bit over a year into starting the company. There was 2 other sales reps that I luckily had onboarded just before it happened, but it was out of the blue. And, you can never prepare for that. And then you have to manage all the sort of the whole company essentially still, even though the company moves on and still needs to work even after. So that was some of the hardest days.
Oh, wow. How'd you get your first customers?
I actually spent quite a bit of time earlier in my career in entrepreneurship communities. They are big in Finland. So some of those people, they eventually become entrepreneurs for real. And they were some of the early customers I had for this one. So that was
Nice.
lucky. And also from some of the customers and companies from my first startup, they decided to give me another try as well. So that was a good chance. So practically building on top of things you have previously built already.
Nice. When did you know you had product market fit? Was it after a certain amount of customers? Was there like a day where you were kind of like, wow, this thing's really taking off?
I was really looking at the conversion rate. So it was about 30-40% of all the meetings we had with customers. They all signed up for the product and stayed with us for I don't know how many long times. But practically I was looking at conversion rates and it was higher than the industry average. So that's really what was the main signal for me.
Nice. What was like your main type of customer? Was it another entrepreneur? Was it a small business owner? Was it an accountant?
So we actually found an interesting market in, I would say, small to mid-sized companies in Finland who want to internationalize outside of Finland. So we offered them SEO services to enter, for example, the American market. And that was really our niche that we were able to manage and control.
Nice.
That was really, really the best thing.
Right on. Well, it sounds like things were going good. You're, really, really profitable. The business is growing fast. What made you decide to potentially sell the business?
Well, the next stage of the company journey would have required us to more heavily expand outside of Finland. So I thought that at this point in life, and I have a family, so I don't want to take the financial risk of expanding too much outside of Finland. Because as a bootstrapped entrepreneur, you're fully on yourself.
Yeah, no, you're doing everything. Tell me this. So you list with acquire.com. What did the first week look like? How many buyers reached out?
We actually had quite a bit of LOIs written. But what I did eventually was I actually listed the company in 3 separate parts. So we had 3 core parts of the company: link building and article writing and the SaaS product itself. So I actually made 3 listings because I didn't really care which part of the company would sell, and I could just then focus on the other parts. But so I did 3 listings. I got about over 100 LOIs, and eventually I got 3 serious offers, I would say. But it took still 6 months to go through the whole process from listing the company, optimizing the spend of the company. That's a really key thing to start doing once you decide that you're going to sell the company.
Nice. Given that you sold a startup previously with Acquire, what did you do differently the second time around? Did you have more docs uploaded? Did you have like an intro video recorded? Were you more active in the reach out with buyers? Like how did that first win help the second?
All of that. So I had much more documentation, pretty much all the questions you could ask. I actually got a buyer account on Acquire as well. So I could look at what other companies have listed on their listings. And I took inspiration on here's all the things that they might have mentioned in their process. So
nice.
That inspired me to create my documentation. And then also one key thing was to create more FOMO. So last time when I sold the company, we only had one really interested buyer, and I didn't go and tender other offers after we found that one. So now that we were selling this other company, immediately when we knew we had a potential buyer, I went out, shopped around for other buyers as well before going forward.
That's one of the best things you can do is when you receive one offer to go back to other buyers and let them know before you accept that offer, you'd like to see if they'd like to submit an offer of their own, because that competition is the best way to increase the final sale price of the acquisition. Did you do anything like that with your acquisition?
Yeah, actually, I sent out messages to all the interested, anyone who had signed an LOI with us. I said that, okay, we have a serious other buyer. If you're still interested, here's my booking link. You can go through and just set up a meeting. Initially, you want to greet everyone once they sign an LOI so that your name is familiar with them, and also connected on LinkedIn and so forth.
Yeah,
all these things.
I think you mean NDA, not LOI. LOI.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, when you said you got 100 LOIs, it was like, wow, that's a new record by about 90. How did the buyer calls go? What were like some common questions? How did you navigate those? Did you just block out like a week of time and let buyers schedule with you? What did that look like?
Well, initially, there was a lot of confusion whether we are a SaaS company or a service-based company. So that's the inspiration to create three different listings for the business. So I had to navigate a little bit through that. But then it's about who are your customers, where they're from, how much are they paying on average. Even though those are things you have listed on your memorandum, you still might go through them in a call. So same that typical things. And the buyer wants to know you personally as well, because never do a bad deal with a bad person, or however is
Yeah.
the saying.
It's a great quote. How did you end up picking the winning buyer? You said you had three different offers. I assume they were all great. Was there anything about the buyer or their offer that made you want to accept theirs?
Yeah, pretty much best terms. So they went with a full cash offer, scheduled cash transfers instead of having some sort of a buyout and other terms. So this one made most sense.
It's as good as it gets. All cash at close. Did you negotiate those terms, or did the buyer come with those terms?
I initially proposed to this particular buyer, and then they made some modifications, and then we decided that let's go forward with this one. Yeah.
Nice.
Luckily, they had some experience. They were a private equity buyer, so they knew kind of what they wanted, and we aligned on that.
Nice. So you move forward, you signed the LOI with this one buyer. How was due diligence? How long did that process take? Any hiccups?
It was quite fast, honestly. Initially, we were going for a asset transfer, which is the most difficult thing to do on acquire, but eventually the buyer ended up doing a full stock sale. So that was a bit more trickier to manage. So we had to come up with some documentation and all that for during the transfer. Due diligence itself was quite fast process because I had gone through the process previously. I knew that all the things that they might want to look at. So I was preparing docs beforehand and sending them, okay, you might want to look at this and that. So all this. So
Nice.
definitely helping to have one exit go through already.
When you guys closed, did you do anything to celebrate the win when the money hit your bank account? Did you go do anything fun, go to a nice dinner?
So we closed about, I think it's now maybe a month ago. So actually the process here, when money comes from US to Finland, the whole process is a bit tricky. There's KYC checks and all these things. So actually only earlier this week I got the money through. But
Oh, nice. Right on. Congrats.
we immediately booked the trip to Croatia. So that was a thing to do.
Nice. Good pick. So now that you've been through two acquisitions, you've been through due diligence, finding buyers, preparation. If another founder was looking to sell their business, what's some advice you give them?
I would say don't put too much pressure on making the perfect deal or anything like that. If you start a new startup, if you're really an entrepreneur who will go on start multiple startups, you're gonna learn new things all the time. So just keep learning and keep replicating same success.
Nice. Well, what's next for you, Teemu? You're an exit founder. Sounds like this was an awesome win. What are you building next? Are you taking some time off?
Taking some time off, but then I am very interested in what are all the things you can do with AI. Obviously, everyone else is doing the same. So, doing AI products right now might be too hot of a market, but there might be some other more traditional business opportunities that might benefit from having an AI component in it. Yeah, just traditional.
Right on. Well, hey, huge congrats on the acquisition. I really enjoyed hearing your story. If people want to follow you online or just reach out to you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn is best. I try to share as much as I can about the journey there as well.
Right on. I'll put that in the show notes. All right, Teemu. Well, congrats again on the acquisition. Thanks again for coming on the podcast and hope to help you again.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Cheers.